Hello, BookTube. Sorry again for making no videos yesterday. One of the things I missed was, of course, Friday Reads. But I can do a Friday Reads on Saturday, can't I? I mean, just generally on BookTube, when we do Friday Reads, aren't we really talking about what we're going to read in the next few days? Not just on Friday. It's not just on Friday. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you a few books that I'll be working on in the next few days. Starting with one that I dipped into, and I really liked what I read, and then I stopped. I got bombarded because it's an October book, and October just bombarded me. It defeated me completely in terms of the sheer number of books not to read. I read everything with only a handful of exceptions, this being one of them. But in terms of reviewing, oh God, there was no chance. There was no chance at all. But this one is an October holdover that I actually want to get to because the part that I read I really liked. And it's this. It's Joshua Rifkin's biography of Cy Twombly, Chalk. And it's about the utterly worthless contemporary artist. But the thing I liked about the part that I read is that it was non-formal. It was passionate. It was beautifully written. It was impressionistic. I get the impression that this is probably the author's only attempt at biography. And often I like those. Often the ones that are more personal and more impressionistic, I often like those a lot as exercises in biography. So I want to get to this. I don't know much about the artist, but I'm all for reading. I'm all for reading it, even though it's not a November book. Then the next one you will have seen on Shawn the Book Maniac's channel. I'm sure you're all subscribed to his channel. It's wonderful. He's an expat from Saskatchewan living in Japan. And he recently showed this book, Feel Free, by Zadie Smith. It's a collection of her Deadline book reviews and her Deadline prose, mostly about literature. And I've read a lot of these things. I read a lot of them when they originally appeared. And I read this collection and loved it. I believe it made the all-important list at the end of the year. But when I saw Shawn hold it up on his channel, I immediately contacted him. He, of course, has a much harsher opinion of Zadie Smith novels than I do. He calls them garbage. I tend to agree with an assessment that says that nonfiction is probably something she's better at than fiction. I don't consider her novels to be garbage. I don't hate them as much as he does. But nevertheless, I contacted him, and of course he gleefully agreed with schoolgirlish enthusiasm to a buddy read of Zadie Smith's Feel Free in the month of November. That's always fun. Buddy reads are so much fun. That's why I get invited to so many of them. And right after that, Curtis of Curtis Books and Books just sort of nosed around wondering if we had any buddy reads he could join in on. We both enthusiastically invited him along. Of course, this will fall right in line with the buddy read that I did with Curtis myself, where we did a long and raucously enjoyable buddy read of Arguably by Christopher Hitchens, which was also a large collection of Deadline book review prose. So it'll be the three of us just having another buddy read. They're always so much fun. It's so wonderful that the invitations fly back and forth. It's a sign of the wonderful, warm, embracing community of BookTube. And the same thing with these next two. We have Watch Your Tongue by Mark Abley. What our everyday sayings and idioms literally, figuratively mean. This is a new book with a chameleon on the cover to indicate the changing nature of language. About usage and idiom, a subject that fascinates Shawn. And same thing with this one. This is by Lane Green, and it's called Talk on the Wild Side, Why Language Can't Be Tamed. And both these books together are about a subject that Shawn has talked about quite a bit on his channel, the uselessness of prescriptive grammars, the interesting ways that languages change as organic creatures over time, and how it's kind of silly to sit on the sidelines and say, well, you can't use that word that way, even though I do that far more than not at all. I definitely do that. But I'm every bit as fascinated in the subject as Shawn is. And so when I told him about these two books, he immediately suggested that we buddy read them. And why not? That's always sort of fun. As Shawn put it, I'm always up for buddy reading anything with you. And that's really touching. I felt that, and that's wonderful. And then the next book is it's bittersweet. It's extra bittersweet, but I want to read it. It's by Kathleen Hall Jamieson, and it is Cyber War, a little book, How the Russians, Hackers, and Trolls Helped Elect a President. And Kathleen Hall Jamieson is the Elizabeth Ware Packard Professor at Annenberg School of Communication at the University of Pennsylvania and director of its Annenberg Public Policy Center. She's a member of the American Philosophical Society and a distinguished scholar of the National Communications Association. And she's done a bunch of other books, and she has more credentials that are longer than your arm. But the point is that from her previous books, I have learned that this is an author I will read about anything. If she takes time out of her schedule to research something, to collate other people's research on something, and then sit down and think about it all and work out her thoughts on paper, as she's doing here with the Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, I'm going to read it, no matter what the subject is. If she's one of those writers where if she does that, I'm going to read it. So I'm going to read this book, even though it's going to infuriate me, especially in light of the fact that the United States is days away from its midterm election, in which Russian cyber interference will be rampant. In the 2 years since the 2016 presidential election, and keep in mind, we don't know the extent of the Russian interference, let alone the extent of how effective it was. The alt-right and knee-jerk Republicans who are just defending Donald Trump at this point in order to quote-unquote own the libs. They don't actually like him. They don't actually like anything that he does. They just don't like the people who don't like him. And the knee-jerk thing that they say is that the voting tabulation machines, the state by state, county by county and whatnot, are not hackable. They are not on any central grid. It would have taken Russian agents on the scene. And of course, that's willfully ignorant of what this actual story is about. The story is about everything before then. The story is about how you influence a voter via social media. It's not about hacking voting machines. It's about influence. It's about hacking voters. It's about hacking voting minds and spreading lies, misinformation campaigns, using social media's incredibly intimate role in most people's lives. How many people throughout this country get everything they know about the outside world from Facebook, and so are eminently vulnerable to hacking. Not their account, but their opinions. And in the 2 years since that election, the party in power has done nothing at all to safeguard that. They may have punted a little of it to the giant corporations that guard that run these social media platforms to say, you should really clean house. But nothing other than that. And those companies have made it very clear that they either know perfectly well what they're doing and have no intention of changing it, or even more horrifyingly, don't have any idea what they're doing, one way or another. No safeguards have been taken to prevent that very same thing from happening again. And so it will. And that, plus an extremely low Democratic voter turnout and vote disenfranchisement and redistricting, the combination of those three things is going to make the results of this midterm unbelievably, bitterly disappointing to a large swath of the country, the huge majority of the country, that's counting on this midterm election to effect what the Democratic candidates are all saying now is a check on the administration of Donald Trump. If the Democrats retake control of the House of Representatives, or I've even heard some representatives on TV who load themselves with enough cocaine before the cameras roll to actually say they think that the Democrats have a chance of taking the Senate as well. Neither one of those things is going to happen. The Republicans are going to be firmly in control of both the Senate and the House of Representatives at the end of the midterms. But one way or another, the idea that the Democratic candidates have been putting forward is that if they're elected, even to the House of Representatives, they will act as a check on Donald Trump, because Congress, entirely Republican, is not checking Donald Trump. They look the other way when he is grotesque or inappropriate or insensitive or racist. They look the other way and stay silent when he openly proposes illegal things, like shooting protesters, something like that. They are almost completely silent. The boorishness, the illegalness, the racism, the homophobia, the sexism of this horrible cockroach of a person. And the reason they are is because he's doing what they want. He's giving them what they want. They want themselves and their extremely rich followers to pay no taxes, not only now, but in perpetuity. They want to be an untaxed class that controls 60% of the wealth of the country and pays no taxes on it. Let the burden of the taxes that actually fund the government fall on everyone else. They want that, and this president is willing to look the other way, to blunder with all thumbs on Twitter at 3 in the morning. He's willing to do his own thing, his stupid, baiting and baited, reactionary, brainless own thing, while the Republican Party gets what it wants out of him. So they're not acting as a check on anything that he does. They're not rebuking him in any way. They have not demanded to see his tax returns. They have not demanded that he stop openly profiting from whoring out the presidency to make money. They haven't demanded any of that. They have surrendered. They have surrendered that kind of warfare in order to just get stuff done, their own package of stuff done. And so the Democrats have been running on the idea that in addition to us being more representative, in addition to us being more sensitive to your needs, in addition to us fighting for your health care and, maybe shining a light on some of the ugly undersides of the fantastic economic reporting that's been done in the last few months, in addition to all of that, we will also check the president. If we take control of Congress, we will prevent him from doing things like raping the environment, and we will investigate him in a way that Congress should have investigated him anyway. Even on his own party should have done so, because what he's doing is obviously illegal. And the law should matter more than your party. The Democrats have been running on saying that they will do that. I know a lot of people who are going to vote this coming Tuesday. I also know a far, far larger majority of people who are not going to vote this Tuesday. And a lot of those people are in states where it will matter, and they're still not going to do it. And that's, I believe, what the outcome we will see will be, that roughly 17 or 18% of registered Democrats will vote on Tuesday, and over 70% of registered Republicans will vote. And thanks to cybernetic interference with social media platforms to change and move and motivate opinions by spreading lies, and thanks to disenfranchisement and redistricting, I believe that those factors altogether will make 2018 a repeat of 2016, right down to the staggeringly, wandering around in daylight, bumping into things, disbelief of a large part of the voter of the voter electorate who just don't believe that that's going to happen. I have seen so many news programs in the last week, in the last 2 weeks, that they start by talking about the quote-unquote blue wave. They start by talking about that. They say, all right, the blue wave's already happened. I know it's not the midterm voting day yet, but nevertheless, it's already happened. So what we need to talk about now for the next hour with all of our panel of experts is what that means. What are the ramifications of this blue wave that we've already won? Anyway, this is, of course, a much smaller subject than all of that. The 2018 midterm elections will be the subject of a host of books on their own. This is about 2016. And this is about what actually happened, how we know what we know, the extent of it, and what can be done about it, if anything can be done about it. And again, I wouldn't care if this was about the proper care and treatment of chinchillas for fun and profit. If it's written by this author, I will read it. So that's the next thing that I'm going to be reading. And then the last thing is something I just got in the mail recently. This is the venerable Penguin Classic 1-volume abridgment of The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon. I'm a big fan of Gibbon, and I absolutely love the complete, the unabridged. I've read The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire a couple of times from start to back, and I love it. But I also love a really good abridgment. This is a really good abridgment. Modern Library did a fantastic abridgment. There's a sense of what you can get out of Gibbon that makes for almost a different book to read a really good abridgment. And, of course, it's a fantastic introduction that isn't nearly as intimidating as 3,000-page volumes. This is just one, admittedly thick volume, but it's a wonderful, non-intimidating way to dip your toe into Gibbon. Most of the people who are interested in reading him have in the back of their mind some vague idea that it's probably a good idea to read the whole of The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, and they should. But there are large chunks of that book that you can excise without losing the thread of the whole thing. And this is a wonderful example of that. I've read this Penguin abridgment many times, and I've also taught it, and it's very effective, not just in conveying the sense and the variety of Gibbon, but also in enticing people to want to read the whole thing. I've lost count of how many people I've known who've read this book on my urging and then gone on to read the whole of Gibbon and been glad they did. So I'm always happy to reread this. So imagine my surprise and delight when Shawn the Book Maniac and Curtis of Curtis Books and Books volunteered yet again for another read-along, another buddy read. I swear, our Voxers will just be burning up the night because Shawn's in Japan and Curtis is in England and I'm in America. Nevertheless, they both want to do a buddy read of this Penguin abridgment, not the whole of The Decline and Fall, but just this volume. I think that's wonderful. It's just again, it's a sign of the community of BookTube that we're always willing to do buddy reads with each other. It's just wonderful. So that's my Friday reads. The Saturday reads is a bit belated, and of course it's not alone. I have lots and lots of company this time around. It's always nice to have buddy reads for company. So I'll be doing all of those things, and that leaves plenty of room for other things as well. So you'll be getting more bookish updates as the weekend and the early week go on. So in the meantime, I will wrap this up for now, but I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.